Donald Trump has condemned hatred, bigotry and violence on many sides after clashes at a white nationalists' rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, which left 3 people dead, including a pedestrian and 2 in a helicopter crash. The president spoke after 2 days of violent protests in the city that is home to the University of Virginia, triggered by a Unite the Right rally organized to protest the removal of statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. The pedestrian died when a car plowed into counter-protesters, prompting the FBI to open a civil rights investigation into the incident. "We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, violence on many sides," Mr. Trump said in brief remarks in Bedminster, New Jersey. "We must love each other, respect each other and cherish our history together." Even as Mr. Trump called for unity, many criticized the president and his reference to many sides for not strongly coming out against the type of far-right groups that supported his campaign and organized the weekend's events. Among them was Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, who lost to Mr. Trump for the Republican nomination for president last year, and who tweeted that it was very important for the nation to hear POTUS describe events in Charlottesville for what they are, a terror attack by white supremacists. The Charlottesville police chief said a male driver was in custody after a 32-year-old woman died and 19 sustained injuries ranging from minor to life-threatening when the car hit counter-protesters in downtown Charlottesville. Another 15 injuries were reported in connection with the protests, police said. 2 state police troopers died when the helicopter crashed nearby. The city government identified the driver as James Alex Fields, Jr., a 20-year-old Ohio resident, and said he has been charged with 1 count of second-degree murder, 3 counts of malicious wounding and 1 of a hit-and-run. The Richmond Federal Bureau of Investigation Field Office and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Virginia said they had opened a civil rights investigation into the circumstances of the deadly vehicular incident. 3 other men were also arrested in connection to the violent clashes between white supremacists and counter-protesters in Charlottesville. Troy Donegan, a 21-year-old from Chattanooga, Tennessee, was charged with disorderly conduct. Jacob Smith, a 21-year-old from Louisa, Virginia, was charged with assault and battery, and James O'Brien, 44, of Gainesville, Florida, was charged with carrying a concealed handgun, said the Virginia State Police late on Saturday. Read more. Virginia state of emergency, 3 dead, dozens injured, after clashes at rally. Trump is not solely to blame for racist attacks. America lurches towards a dark form of nationalism. Virginia State Police also released photos of Trooper Pilot Burker M. Bates and LTHJ Cullen, who were both killed on Saturday when the helicopter they were piloting crashed while assisting public safety resources during clashes at a nationalist rally in Charlottesville. The violence and deaths in Charlottesville strike at the heart of American law and justice, Attorney General Jeff Sessions said, commenting on the FBI's probe. "When such actions arise from racial bigotry and hatred, they betray our core values and cannot be tolerated." Earlier on Saturday, Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, a Democrat, declared a state of emergency after violent run-ins between thousands of the demonstrators, counter-protesters and supporters of the activist group Black Lives Matter. Some of the white nationalists reportedly chanted anti-Semitic slogans. Television images showed police in riot gear among the crowd. At a press conference, Mr. McAuliffe addressed the white supremacists and the Nazis who came into Charlottesville today. "Our message is plain and simple: go home. You are not wanted in this great Commonwealth. Shame on you." I'm in Bedminster for meetings press conference on VA all that we have done, and are doing, to make it better, but Charlottesville sad. Donald J. Trump at Real Donald Trump, August 12, 2017. By contrast, in his comments in New Jersey and in an earlier Twitter message on Saturday, Mr. Trump avoided direct references to the white nationalists, neo-Nazis, neo-Confederates and other right-wing activists who congregated in the city and on the campus of UVA, which was founded in 1819 by Thomas Jefferson. In his tweet, he said, "We all must be united, condemn all that hate stands for. There is no place for this kind of violence in America. Let's come together as one." He later added that the situation in Charlottesville was sad and called for a swift restoration of law and order. While he condemned Saturday's violence, Mr. Trump has not always forcefully denounced far-right nationalists, early supporters of his presidential campaign. "I would recommend you take a good look in the mirror. Remember, it was white Americans who put you in the presidency, not radical leftists. https://cork702, David Duke at David August 12, 2017. One of the best-known white supremacists in the U.S., former Ku Klux Klan leader and Louisiana lawmaker David Duke, addressed Mr. Trump in a tweet: "I would recommend you take a good look in the mirror. Remember, it was white Americans who put you in the presidency, not radical leftists." The Southern Poverty Law Center, a civil rights group based in Montgomery, Alabama, sent a blast fundraising email calling Mr. Trump's comments about unity hollow. Lawmakers were also quick to respond. Make no mistake, these insidious psychologies have been given license to be brought out in the open air by a president that openly seized upon these hatreds during his campaign, and continues to traffic in divisive rhetoric and hateful policies in the White House, said Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat. Some of Mr. Trump's fellow Republicans were just as blunt. Texas Senator Ted Cruz, another contender who lost to Mr. Trump for the Republican nomination for president, described the car ramming incident as a grotesque act of domestic terrorism and called for an investigation. "Mr. President, we must call evil by its name. These were white supremacists and this was domestic terrorism," Senator Cory Gardner, a Republican, said on Twitter. And Representative Ileana Ros-Lehtinen of Florida said on Twitter that white supremacists, neo-Nazis and anti-Semites are the antithesis of our American values. There are no other sides to hatred and bigotry. First Lady Melania Trump, in a rare foray into a contentious issue, tweeted earlier that our country encourages freedom of speech, but let's communicate where hate in our hearts. No good comes from violence. Our country encourages freedom of speech, but let's communicate where hate in our hearts. No good comes from violence. Charlottesville, Melania Trump at FLOTUS, August 12, 2017.